You know I've got to be rocking my Kentucky blue in honor of the inspiration for today's video. That's right, we're going to be talking about former Wildcat and current Warrior DeMarcus Cousins, and specifically his Achilles tendon rupture. What's going on, everybody? My name is Brian and I'm a doctor who's also a huge sports fan, and it's my goal on this channel to combine those two interests to help look at different sports injuries and explain them in a way that's easier for the common fan to understand and learn from. Today's topic was requested by a ton of people on the channel, and so of course I'm going to deliver and talk about DeMarcus Cousins' Achilles tendon rupture. We're going to take a look at the injury footage itself to explain what happened and what the mechanism was, go through some basic anatomy and principles about the Achilles tendon and what can put people at risk of rupture, and make sure you stick around to the very end because we're going to look at some research that can give us some clues into how Cousins might perform in the upcoming season and what one of the key points is going to be to watch during his recovery process. So without further delay, let's run the tape and take a look at the actual injury.
Cousins misses. Oh, almost got his own rebound. Big foul, meanwhile, by Davis. And DeMarcus Cousins can't go. Oh, boy. He's holding that left lower leg area in the area of his Achilles.
So we can see here Cousins shooting a free throw and he misses, goes up for his own rebound, and as he's coming down and turning, falling out of bounds, he lands a little bit awkwardly on that left foot, causes a lot of bending in his heel, which ultimately, as we know, led to his Achilles tendon rupture. Let's take a little bit of an anatomy lesson, as we always like to do here, and talk about the Achilles tendon and what exactly its function is. So here we have our foot model and the Achilles tendon running down the backside. It's that big thick cord you can feel in the back of your foot. Now, a tendon is a structure that connects muscles to bones, so the Achilles tendon is the structure connecting the muscle of the calf, or specifically the gastrocnemius and the soleus, down to the bone of the calcaneus, or the heel bone. The Achilles tendon is a very thick, very strong, elastic rope, for lack of a better description. So think of it basically as a rope connecting the muscles to the heel bone. It's functioning whenever basketball players jump and land to help transmit all of that energy that's generated up through the body to propel them during their movements. As such, we know that the Achilles tendon has to absorb and be able to sustain a really, really high amount of load and is really important in the biomechanics of sports, specifically like basketball. Next, let's take a look at the actual footage to explain what exactly is going on when the tendon ruptures. So if we run it back here, we can see in slow motion as Cousins is coming down and landing on that left foot, we can see the point of contact where his foot is extremely dorsiflexed. Dorsiflexion is just a fancy word for when the toes and the heel are pointed upwards. Plantar flexion is when they're pointing down. So whenever he lands, that extreme angle, all right, that's put between the foot and the Achilles causes an excessive amount of load and tension to be generated inside that structure. If we go back to our rope analogy, eventually, no matter how big and strong a rope is, if you subject it to too high of a load, it's going to snap. And that's what's happened in this case as well. Now, if we go back to our model, the actual area where most of the time the tendon is ruptured, it's typically not that it just pulls off of the bone. So the actual insertion spot down here, where it goes into the bone, is really, really strong. Most of the time when it ruptures, it's actually rupturing a few centimeters above the insertion, kind of in this area. And the reason for that is because it's the area where the tendon is the thinnest, for one, and we know that a thin rope is going to be weaker than a big stiff rope. So whenever it gets pulled, it breaks at the point of least resistance, which is typically kind of in this area, a few centimeters above the origin. Achilles tendon ruptures are considered to be like the injury of the weekend warrior. So they're most common in males in kind of their mid-40s. A big portion of why older age is more common is because over time we naturally get wear and tear, or tendinosis, of that structure, just as the natural process of aging. We know that older tendons are not as strong as new tendons, and so that's why we typically see Achilles tendon ruptures in players who are veterans in the NBA. Let's last take a look at some existing research on Achilles tendon ruptures in professional athletes to get a sense of why Cousins is kind of in a unique situation based on how old he was with his injury, and what kind of the key point it's going to be to watch out for during his recovery process. Like I said, Achilles tendon ruptures are considered to be a veteran's injury. If we look at previous athletes who sustained these injuries, you'll see what I mean. So Elgin Baylor, 36 years old. Patrick Ewing, 36 years old. Kobe Bryant, 34 years old. Dominic Wilkins, 32 years old. DeMarcus Cousins was only 27 when he tore his Achilles tendon. And this is the key point of why his situation is a little bit unique and what we need to watch for in his recovery. A lot of these players might not have done well statistically after their rupture because they were already on the tail end of their career and didn't quite maybe have that same drive or that same performance ability in the gym or whatever to do as well as someone who, say, is 27 and tears their Achilles. The other interesting part looking at previous research is if players are able to get back onto the court or onto the field, once they hit about that 2-year mark post-injury, their performance really isn't that much different when you look at age-matched players who did not have an injury. If you can make that crucial time point about 1 to 2 years after your injury where you're still able to play and be effective, at that point, you actually start to get pretty close to your peers in terms of had you not had the injury at all. So it's definitely unfair to expect that Cousins is going to be anywhere near to his old self this season, but if he can get through this season, a following season, and then play into the next one, he's kind of past that inflection point where he might start looking just as good as someone who had not had that same injury as he had. That's it for this video, everybody. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate all the awesome feedback. And until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.